You're watching Tip City. I'm Annie Cranfield, and I'm here with Jenna Herbut. Yeah. How do you put Herbut?
Herbut, yeah,
Herbut.
that's right.
Jenna Herbut. And she's going to tell us all about her book, which, let me get it. This is a thing. You did a thing.
Yeah.
And not an easy thing to do either.
No.
Writing a book is not easy. And so that's really why I wanted to talk to you today, because I think that there might be people out there that are thinking about writing a book, but maybe the idea of writing a book seems daunting. Because maybe they don't think, well, I'm not a writer. Like, who am I to write a book? And I don't think that's necessarily right. I think anyone should feel inspired to write a book. So that's really what we're here to talk about. So guide us a little bit through the process in your mind when you decided you wanted to write a book.
Well, I felt that I had had such a rich experience with having my own business. So my first business I started was called Booty Belts with a Z. And I started it when I was in university about 15 years ago now. No, longer. Oh my God. Like maybe 17 years ago. Sometime back when I was in school. So it was an accessory line that I then launched once I graduated. So I ran that for about 5 years, and then I started producing craft fairs. And long story short, the first craft fair with about 25 exhibitors turned into what Make It is today. Yeah. So at the Peony Forum, we have about 260 exhibitors, and we get about 20,000 people per show. So we do them twice a year in Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary. Yeah. So just the experience of producing the show and also working with so many makers and artists and entrepreneurial people, I just thought, wow, like I want to share what I've learned and the patterns I've seen. So the title of the book is Make It Happen, and it's how to take creative ideas and make them real, because I think that's something that a lot of people have these ideas, but they're too afraid to actually launch. And we were talking about this off camera, like the podcast. This is awesome, but I'm sure there's so many people out there who have an idea to create a podcast, but the starting and just doing it can be the challenge.
Yeah, I totally. And this is something that we were talking about. How I started this video. Sometimes things aren't necessarily for you, but you have to try anyways. And if you sink, you swim. It's not for you. But if you swim, then you wouldn't have found out that you swim unless you got to the deep end.
Yeah,
so this is a little bit of going into the deep end. So how does the process of starting to write a book look like? Like, how do you put pen to paper, or is it on your computer? Like, how do you even begin the process of writing a book?
I'm sure it's different for everyone, but what I did is I bought this massive scrapbook, like this big kind of art book, and I just got sticky notes and felt pens, and I made my little dining area into like arts and crafts zone. And just really pieced it out that way, because it can be really overwhelming. It's like, what's the title of the chapters, and where do you start, and jumping around. So I do think that being able to see it physically was really helpful, because just to start like chapter 1, blah, 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 to go through the end, maybe some people's brains work like that. Mine definitely does not. So for me, it was just having something that was very visual was extremely helpful.
Yeah, so visual, putting things together. And I think, you sort of nailed it on the head. You have to find the process that works for you.
And I think also books evolve. They have a life of their own. So when I first started writing this book, like, it was probably about 2 years ago when I thought the book was going to look a lot different than what it became, because I think it takes on a life of its own. And it's almost like you're bringing down an idea from the universe and then transcribing it onto a page. And sometimes just inspiration and people I would meet and just events I would go to and travel experiences really shape what the book now has become.
So how long would you say took to write this book?
Oh my God, so many hours of my life. So many of my hours in front of a computer. But writing the book is actually not the hard part. It's the editing. It's that back and forth of having like a million like red lines and kind of looking at the changes the editor made and accepting or rejecting them. Right. That's a hard part for sure. And this book is now sitting at about 225 pages, which I was happy. I was like, oh, it's a real book.
It's a real book.
But I originally wrote over 100,000 words, and now it's between 55 to 60,000. Wow. So almost half was edited out, and it's like, oh, was the good half edited out or the bad part? But you have to just trust and surrender into the process and know that an editor, a professional editor, knows better than you do. So, but that's hard sometimes. But you also have to fight for what you believe in. Because just because an editor is a professional and they've edited tons of books, that doesn't mean they know your audience better than you, because you know your audience better than anybody. So you can be guided, but it's a bit of, that trust. If you feel really passionate about something and you want it in your book, like fight for it, but then other things I'm like, well, maybe that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. And so in this day and age where, everything is virtual, why did you decide to write a book?
As opposed to
doing a podcast or doing videos?
It started out as a personal challenge. I've never run a marathon before, but I'm sure it's a similar type idea, where it's something that I just wanted to prove to myself I could do, because I have very low attention span and I'm always like a million ideas.
Right.
But there is something very, very powerful about focus and putting your attention onto a singular idea, because there's a distillment that happens when you write a book.
And so why did you want to write a book? Because what is it for?
You get to a point, because I've been an entrepreneur, like I said, 15 to 17 years if I actually do the math. But beyond that, I've always been entrepreneurial. And I feel like with business, like this is the 10-year anniversary of Make It. It was founded in 2008. So I have some real life experience, and it's an obligation to share and pay forward and to give back. So it's just an easy way to share information.
Yeah, which I think it's really important what you just said, the fact that you've had information that you want to share. I think it's so powerful. Sometimes, we don't necessarily share the information that we have, and I think everyone should absolutely find an outlet, whether it's through video content, podcasts, anything, blogs, books, to really share our ideas. So what are some of the tips you'd give someone who's thinking about writing a book? Like, what's some advice?
Oh, lots of advice. I think if you can surround yourself with other people who've written books, that can be very, very helpful, to have a bit of a support group or an accountability group.
Right.
I would say if you can, hire professionals to help you. So make sure for an editor or for a designer, you check what they've done and make sure that it's of high quality, because otherwise, you put so much time and effort into this thing, you want to be working with the best you can afford. What else would I say? Know that there's going to be a time and place where you outgrow the book, and that's okay. And also, one thing I realized is this book's not necessarily for my peers. It's for me 10 years ago, or somebody starting out. You don't have to try and sound so smart. Like, actually, by trying to do that, you limit yourself, I think, because the greater audience are people who have an idea and want to make it real. It's not necessarily people at my level as far as experience and as far as length of time they've been doing it. Because if you try and write just for your peers and if you're trying to sound really smart, I think it defeats the purpose. Because the book should be a vehicle to serve and to spread a message that will help people.
That's really interesting. So this book would have helped you 10 years ago?
Oh yeah, definitely. When I first started Beauty Belts, and
So that's some pretty good advice. If you're thinking about writing a book, write a book for yourself 10 years ago. Something that could have
last year, or 6 months ago, or whatever. But I think if you can teach yourself, your former self, I think you're on the right track.
That is really interesting. I love that. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing this in stores. I love the name as well. Make it happen.
Thank you.
That's really cool.
Thanks, Annie.
Thanks so much. See you guys later.